Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, please email me directly. My email address is tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. My email address is your purchase and pricing private concierge. For your questions about this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform, please reach out to me directly. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Today, we are discussing the Patek Philippe Nautilus Chronograph 5980R, a rose gold variant on full leather strap that debuted at Basel World in 2010. It is a lovely and luminous, shimmering, bold gold flyback chronograph that is swimmable while retaining the standardized Nautilus profile of winglets, rounded polygonal bezel, and of course the strakes on a now gradient brown bronze dial. Lots to love here. As you can see, the timepiece is wearable at 40.5 millimeters in diameter in rose gold. It measures 12.5 millimeters thick, so it's not thick at all. It's about as thick as a Rolex Daytona, and it is 51.8 millimeters from end link to end link. That is the incompressible full distance across the wrist from which I cannot bend it down anymore. We'll throw it on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference, and you can see it works quite nicely. The timepiece is not excessively large, though it's bigger than a 5711 or a 5712. It's not large, it's not bulky, and especially in rose gold on this brown leather strap, it wears with great elegance. You can see how it has a very sloped case flank, so it will slide underneath under a dress cuff or a tight sleeve, and it's not terribly broad across the wrist. I could recommend it for a wrist as small as 14 centimeters circumference. This watch is equipped with the Patek Philippe factory leather strap. There is a rubber option from Patek if you want to take this watch swimming and take advantage of its 120 meters of water resistance. So the leather strap actually looks just like the rubber strap. So brown on the top, a sort of ecru coloration on the bottom. This strap is tapered. It matches the taper that you would get with the full bracelet. So you still have that very all-of-a-piece, cohesive, integrated look that you'd get with the bracelet, preserving the flow of the lines of Gerald Genta's most famous design, rivaled really only by the Royal Oak. You can see that there's some bolstering to add thickness to the strap. It's a dark brown with a semi-gloss finish, a monotone stitch, and then we have a full deployant clasp here. It's actually a trigger-operated double deployant, and the thing I like is that this clasp feels more premium and better made than the relatively flimsy clamshell locked clasp you'll get on a Nautilus fitted with a bracelet. So here we have this twin trigger release system. It's all substantial, thick gauge, and nicely polished. Getting back to the case, you can see that the lugs are beveled on their edges, satinated on their top. The case flank also features longitudinal satination. Throughout, we have a contrast between satin and polish, creases and curves, and this is one of the primary reasons why the Nautilus costs more, even in its simplest form, than mechanically similar Aquanaut models. There's simply a lot more to this case. The three-port case with a case back, the bezel and the winglets built as a monoblock, and then the mid-case as a separate construction. There's a lot more to finish and fabricate on a Nautilus than there is on an Aquanaut, and the finishing is gorgeous. I've always said the Nautilus looks a bit more resolved than the Royal Oak. Gerald Genta seemed to warm up with his 5402 Royal Oak in 1972, and then in 1976, he decided, I'm going to design a more holistically coherent version of that watch, and that was the Nautilus. Now, the reason I say that is because outboard, you can see the bezel. It has that rounded polygon form like you'll find on a Royal Oak, but then inboard, you can see the inner bezel, the sapphire, and the dial trace the outline of the bezel, whereas on a Royal Oak inboard, it's all circular. There's a little bit of a disjointed clash of circles and the rounded polygon with the Royal Oak, whereas here everything is symmetrical. There are echoes of the design right into the center dial, which includes a brown bronze gradient fade. It's light at the center, dark at the edge, with white on, I guess you call it brown bronze as a base, and then at the center you can see that there are these strakes, and they do run throughout the dial horizontally. That's a design that dates back to 1976. All the hands, as you can see, and the indices are rose gold, and if you look carefully, you can see there's a mono counter down at 6 o'clock. So you have coaxial minutes and hours, and then because this is based on the movement from the 5960 annual calendar flyback chronograph, it uses the same type of pusher adjuster, so the same type of pusher adjuster to adjust the date. Now, there is a flyback for the chronograph, so it's not just a chronograph, it is a flyback chronograph, the mono counter with coaxial hands preserving the symmetry of the dial. The thing about this watch is that when the chronograph is not running, it's a relatively dead dial. There's nothing moving, and everything moves slow. But Here's the thing. You can run the chronograph full times because of the vertical clutch system, so there's no extra wear or tear on the watch. And if you do use the chronograph seconds hand to basically represent constant seconds along with minutes and hours, you set your minutes and your hours, then you wait and you immediately fly back to synchronize to a reference time using this as a synchronization measure. So it doesn't have hacking, but you can beat that by using the seconds hand and the flyback to effectively zero reset. Now, I can also say that because it is a column wheel chronograph, you have a nice crisp action. Caliber CH 28520, 35 joules, anti-magnetic silicone hairspring, free sprung with a Gyromax style balance with variable inertia, the 6-position adjustment, and the Patek Philippe seal mean that this watch is rated from the factory to run no worse than -3 + 2 seconds per day. So you have shock resistance with the balance architecture, you have anti-magnetism with the silicone hairspring, 6-position adjustment, and attestation of accuracy, which is something few high horology brands will give. It is a unidirectional winder with ceramic rotor bearings, and of course it is a column wheel vertical clutch chronograph. It is nicely decorated with circular Cote de Genève on the rotor and the bridges, mirrored beveling on the edge of the bridges, black polished screw heads with chamfered slots in circumference. There's tight engine turning on the center of the rotor, and then there's larger engine turning on the base plate as well as satination on all of the wheels. All told, a very good looking movement. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details of this rose gold Patek Philippe Nautilus chronograph. By the way, 55-hour automatic winding power reserve, solidly above average.